3,100 or 3,140 is the number. That is a huge number, and we are so proud of her. But being able to talk about social change firsthand, be able to talk the evolution of female leadership in a movement where even Black Lives Matter was started by Black women. We can't forget the evolution. We must acknowledge that leadership takes a moment. I would just like to thank Chief Hall for coming on. How are you?
I am doing wonderful, Munson. It's always good to talk to you. I'm so glad that you always offer me a seat at the table and a platform to talk about the city of Dallas and what we're doing in the Dallas Police Department.
You know, there are just some big moments. I mean, there's obviously the evolution of just being a woman in power and leading and being a Black woman, and expectations and even asks that our community could be making that are just unrealistic at this moment, that evolution will take time. Can you kind of speak to that contradiction that seems to be prominent in how we don't understand that the change is happening, and you made some with just 72 hours, things they've never had?
Mm-hmm. So, you know, I want to say that, you know, what we've done in law enforcement for so long has brought pain to our communities, and we can't, you know, negate any of those facts. But what we have to also realize is that the individuals that have committed these offenses and brought this level of pain don't represent every individual in law enforcement. And so we recognize in policing that changes are needed. And I will say that the city of Dallas has seen change since September 5th, 2017, when I took the seat. You know, I came into the police department shutting down vice units. I came into the police department moving out investigative units for our SIU division and making changes of 72 hours. Officers had the ability to get into an officer-involved shooting or critical incident, and they didn't have to make a statement for 72 hours. Instantly changed those kinds of things that are cultural to the department. And so we recognize that there are so many more changes that have to be made in order for us to atone for where we've been. And this is systemic. This is not something that you change. And you and I talked about this. You can't change a culture of law enforcement by putting a Black woman at the helm. No different than you could change racism in this country by putting President Obama in the White House. There are systems that we have to operate in and then work to change those systems while we're in these seats. So I just want people to understand that change is imminent. It's coming, and we're working on it every day, but it doesn't happen overnight as it relates to the entire policing community. It's just like eating an elephant. There's one bite at a time. You have to make sure that you're doing that. And I think we're doing that in policing. I think chiefs all across this country recognize that change is needed. And we're going to make those changes, and we are making those changes, implementing them overnight. Some that have been asks from our community for multiple years. We've made some of them, and then now some of them require technology, and we're making others. So we're stepping up to the plate, and we would just ask that the community would recognize that we are here committed to making those changes, understanding those pain points, feeling those pain points. I tell people all the time, I've been a police officer for 22 years, but I've been Black for 49 my entire life. So it's not as if I'm living in a bubble and I'm oblivious to exactly what's happening. I've been subjected to some of the same things before I was in law enforcement and while I've been in law enforcement. So,
you know, when you say it's big, when you say 72 hours, you'll be able to get this release video. That was huge.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is, because what happens is we've been at this for now 2.5 years, trying to figure out how to release this video. It's not something we haven't wanted to do, but we do have entities that are impacted. So we have the district attorney's office that says, if you release this video, it may jeopardize or impact my ability to try this case, to get this case tried in Dallas County. It may have to be moved based on exposure. And then we have the city attorneys that say, you know, depending upon what's released, it could impact the city. So these are the two entities that, you know, that work so that the chief of police doesn't have autonomy to just like, you know what, I'm releasing it. There are other factors. And so mitigating through those circumstances, bringing all entities to the table, the district attorney will have an opportunity to review the video and weigh in on whether or not it's released. But ultimately, the district attorney, myself, and other members of city government and city council want true transparency, and that's how we get it. So we're excited about being able to make this milestone. We've always had the ability to release video, but it's always been on a case-by-case basis. Now we're saying, here's the direction that we're going. We're bringing in family members, we're bringing in next of kin, and ensuring that everyone knows here's what happened, and then the entire community in the world knows what happened.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the candor. I just want us to pause. You know, there's language, and I have an issue with language when people say, defund the police. You know, it's not that simple. Why don't you help them understand the evolution that we can take, the language that we should be using, so that we're empowering conscious Black in blue, that's what I call it, Black people in blue, so that they understand that, you know, versus defunding, how we should really support the evolution of police and public safety.
Well, Monson, I thank you for that and acknowledging that. And I think when we talk about defunding, we need to really define what that means, because in its true essence, I don't support it. I don't support defunding the police department if it means taking all the resources away from the police department and giving them, you know, to something else. But what I do support is reimagining policing. And when I say that, I mean, the police department is asked to do way too much. We are social workers, we're teachers, tutors. I mean, we're all of those things. And don't get me wrong, in our roles, we want to play a huge role in supporting our community, but the initial response should not be on the police. We have mental health that we're responsible for. We have homelessness that we're responsible for. We're animal catchers when you need dogs caught from mauling individuals. So we have all of these things that none of these things are in our toolbox. When we came on, no one joined to be an animal catcher. You know, we didn't join to be mental health professionals. And so what we're saying is the things that we are charged to do, if the city is able to take those responsibilities away from us and provide finances, monies, fiduciary responsibilities to some other entity to do those things, we welcome that, so we can get back to answering calls for service. When you call the police and you want us there, we want to be there. We don't want to have to say, can't come, we're moving a dog right now. And so we want that, and we want to focus on addressing crime in our communities or preventing it from happening and investigating those things. So those are the three things that the police department really wants to get back to doing only, and doing it extremely well. And with reimagining and saying, if there's a way to take these responsibilities from the police department, give them to another entity, and if there's a way to take that capital or take those finances that assist us in doing that and take that and give it to another entity, we welcome you. I don't know a chief in this country that would argue with taking away social services that the police department is responsible for doing. We welcome that. We have for many years. I just want to say this before I stop talking. Chief Brown, when he was a chief here in Dallas, after 7/7, made a speech. And he talked about how we're asked to do too much. He talked about how we're, if your child didn't go to school today, call the police. He went through a series of things that people call the police for that we are not equipped to do. So we agree with the community when they say there's something else. And then our KPMG study, we had a KPMG study that we spent $500,000 for to see how we can be more successful and efficient as a police department. In that efficiency study, they talked about what we do not need to be responding to and what we need to focus on in order for us to truly be successful. All of the things that the community is asking us to let go of, It's what an efficiency study told us we needed to let go of in order for us to be successful. So we agree on both sides. We hear you, and we represent that, and we're committed to subscribing to that so we can get back to doing what we do best.
Well, I appreciate you explaining that to us, because I think I'm with you in terms of there has to be a truth heard from someone who is definitely a future leader. Because I see you as a future leader, and at least someone who understands what it is to run a city like the D, be in the city, to understand what it is to really be a young Black person who is having to deal with it. And yet, I think our community needs someone who can understand what imagining a police force would be, and to have those things that you've dreamed of as an officer that you obviously didn't see as you got, and still are inheriting things that are been there for years, relationships that have been there for years, and having to even tell business people there's a new police force. This is how the police force really operates for the better good of the entire community.
Absolutely. We building relationships is so important, because the way we've gotten to where we are, and created these broken relationships, I look at as we've been asked to be in a space that we shouldn't. If we're a hammer, then everything is a nail. And so I'll use mental health as an example. If you call the police for an individual who's having an episode, the tools in our toolbox are taser and firearm. If that's not the outcome you want, why are we the first people you call? You should be calling someone that you want a different outcome. And I say that not to say that that's our go-to, but what else do we have in our toolbox? We are not clinical psychologists. 8 hours every other year of critical incident training does not a psychologist make. And so, when an individual goes beyond that point, officers are trained to defend themselves. And so, again, that is not to say we can't do some additional training, but wouldn't it be better to give that incident to the best person who's prepared to handle it? And so we don't end up in a situation where we are taking a life or injuring someone for the rest of their life.
No, I think that's a beautiful message, because our community needs to know the intentionality of Chief Hall was clearly something that was new and different, reimagining in progress. I mean, it's not like, oh, and by the way, I need all this right now, and the mental health people, we got a situation. This is not a Jiffy box, some cornbread. So you can make some quick cornbread, just throw in the egg, and it's ready. No, it's not that. The other thing is just female leadership. How would you describe your leadership style?
So I don't have one particular leadership style. One of the things that I pride myself on is knowing my audience. My police department is made up of baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and then this new generation Z, or, this new generation. And so your leadership style has to adapt and change depending upon who you're dealing with. So when I'm dealing with my baby boomers, I can say this needs to be done. And just because I'm the boss, they go and they do it. That's just how baby boomers are. When you look at Generation X and Ys, you have to tell them why you need them to do it. They want to know all of it. Well, why are we doing this? Well, why not this? And so you have to be the kind of leader who is going to explain, give, outcomes, goals, all of those things. And then millennials are another generation that, look, I just need some technology. I don't need all that talking. Put it on the screen. Let me punch it in. Why can't I be the boss? I need to be the boss like right now because I'm smarter than everybody. And they are great. And they're brilliant. And so you have to be able to navigate between all of those personalities in order for you to lead, because you lead all of those individuals the exact same way. What I do find with women in leadership is, with women in leadership is that we are calmer. we bring a sense of stabilization to aggressive situations. Most women are not trying to get their teeth knocked down their throat. We're not, that whole fighting thing. So we want to quell all confrontation and figure out a way to get around it. And that's our leadership style. And because of that, we are the kind of leaders that say the training academies need to not focus on what you should do in a difficult situation, but what you could do. You need alternative solutions. And it is okay to disengage. Sometimes when you see that you're defeated or something may happen that is going to let neither one of you go home safely, it's okay to disengage, to back up and say, okay, you won today. And it's okay, but the testosterone and the culture of law enforcement does not allow for that. But with my leadership, I make sure that I first let my officers know that it's okay not to be okay. Male, female, it's okay not to be okay. We have dangerous jobs. We see a lot, we do a lot. And it's okay to back up. It's okay to say, you win today. We'll get you later. Because we have to stop thinking about the safety of one and start thinking about the safety of two. It is important that everybody go home. When I say I want to go home at the end of the day, I do want to go home, but I don't want to go home at the expense of your death. I want to go home and I want you to go home. So what's the best way that we get? How do we figure that out? And I think that approach helps women to be more empathetic in our delivery of police services.
That's beautiful. There's a level of vulnerability that allows humanity to find a place in that voice. I think that's what I hear. For many, I think they need to hear it more often because everybody can win. There's sometimes, the win is everybody won and everybody went home safe. That was the win. Everybody.
And sometimes the win is we both lost. Right. You lost and I lost. Right. And not lost, but we just didn't get what we both wanted. And it's okay. It's okay. I love that. I actually love what you just said. That's important.
Yeah. And I got it from you. That was what I heard you saying back to me. So I think it's I just wanted you to share leadership because even though you say you don't have a style, I gleaned from what you said that there was a style and that it's something that we say it in genders, but I think at some point we'll move toward humanity. And then what I saw was a much more humane approach. It wasn't necessarily gender-based because I think if you got to pull a trigger, I don't think male, female, Chief Hall knows how to pull a trigger, but she's saying, well, hold on, there's an approach to this. That's not the first thing we do. No. There's assessment that gives you pause to think of impact. And when we do that, then it's a much more humane approach because now you're considering things that typically aren't built in your ego and aren't built in the fact that valor is there. This isn't a moment to be, pushed by valor. And I think we can glean from seeing more female leadership and then being able to apply it to just having human leadership. So the people that say, oh, you're acting like, no, she's acting more humane than you know how to be because your ego gets in the way as a male. You want to just run it down. And that's just not gonna be a lot of broken things after that. And somebody got to clean that up. And I hate cleanup. And I know you hate cleanup and nobody wants to just clean up, So I appreciate it.
I do want to say that is, we have to put that into action. So that's what we're doing in the Dallas Police Department is taking that approach into our police academies, into our core training that we do annually and biannually, is to make sure that humanitarian approach, that we are now looking at what you could do and alternative solutions in our training. And we have not been there. We have not always been there. But that's a huge piece because when we look at everyone who talks about the shootings that happen, the first thing they say is, well, the officer could have done this, or the officer could have done that. But the truth of the matter is they weren't taught to do that. And that's our fault. That's our fault in leadership that we have to go back and say, let me give you a few more tools to put in your toolbox. Instead of using the force continuum of escalating beyond where the individual is, how about the disengagement? How about something that's an alternative to that? And so we're working on that. That's what our new training development is going to look like, so that we can truly be the kind of police department that our community can respect, that they can trust, because that's the only thing that matters.
Well, I want to thank you for coming and seating the table. It is always great, Chief Hall. Continue to lead, continue to be courageous, because I know it's not easy to even be in an organization talking about change at all. And for being a sister that is Black and blue, because I know that is not easy. So next time we'll talk about how to recruit more young people so that they too can be Black and blue, because that's needed as well. Much respect. Know that we love you very much over here, and keep our community safe. And we are very proud of what you do for our community.
Thank you so much. And I love you guys back, and I will see you soon.
You got it. Thanks so much. Peace.
Thanks.